Reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network.
You're logging into your favorite game, grinding out some gear. A couple of points added to your stats, and you have a virtual beer. Max level is pretty cool, but I'll remind you here, my friend. These games are not about the goal, it's about the journey and not the end.
You're listening to MMO Reporter, brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at audibletrial.com/MMO Reporter. And by Doghouse Systems. Choose your weapon with Doghouse Systems.
Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish.
Hello everybody, Chris here from MMO Reporter, and I'm joined today for this very special show by Stephen Ricossa. Did I say your last name right, Stephen?
You did, absolutely. Yes. You did.
He is the current executive producer for Star Trek Online, and we are going to talk today about Season 11. Now, this is one thing that Star Trek Online has done incredibly right, I think, in its entire history, is the way in which it's approached a story that grows with the game throughout, right from the very beginning. Now, going into Season 11, before we actually talk about the meat of it, Stephen, how important do you think it is to the health of the game as a whole that you have these seasons that tie into the same continuity, much like a TV show or the series of movies?
We think it's incredibly important, especially with the Star Trek fan base. For a long time, we would tell stories and they'd be more isolated, but we found real success with storytelling when it was more like a season of a TV show where maybe an entire year you'd be getting episodes telling one serialized story over that entire 12-month period. That's something that we found to be very popular. And so we're right now, before Season 11, closing out our big Iconian story arc. They're introduced when the game launched 5.5 years ago. And then we're finally having, right near the end of an all-out war with the Iconians that's wrapping up next month. And then Season 11 will be a new dawn, taking us in a whole new direction.
Now, that must be a bit of a challenge as well. You've built up quite the expectations. I remember, I'm going back here a little bit here, but I think it was Season 4, which was when you traveled back to the original Star Trek. Am I remembering the season right? And did the time travel and had the interaction with the original crew?
That actually launched with the game.
Was that? No, that was with the game? I thought that was a little bit afterwards. Oh, my memory is flawed.
No, we did 2 episodes. You're right. We did an episode that launched with the game, but then we did do a specific time travel arc. That was a 5-episode arc where you did go back and interact with Scotty and with Bones.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one.
So that one came out just before Season 4. Good memory. Good call.
Thank you. Obviously, it's stuck in my brain, right? And that must be a burden on, and I mean that not in a negative connotation, but a responsibility that as developers you must feel, because you have created some pretty iconic stories throughout the history of the game, and you kind of got to keep that up.
It's definitely true, and we talk with our CBS partners all the time, and we're kind of the shepherds of live Trek right now, right? I mean, we have the movies coming out, which are fun, but there's no TV show, and so if you want to get cool Star Trek stories on any regular basis, this is where they are. And so we definitely feel the burden of responsibility, because everyone here that works on the game are big Star Trek fans, and so everyone has their cool moments that we want to tie up or move forward with.
That's awesome. So with New Dawn, what direction are we heading in? We've had this big war. It's been battles. Where are we going now?
So we're going to wrap up the war, and then New Dawn, the primary story beat is going to take us in a new direction. So, the war hasn't ended yet, so I don't want to give out any real spoilers, but we do know that everyone's kind of tinkering with time travel. The Krenim time ship is under development, and we've been talking about it a little bit. And so that might play into where we're going, the war. the war eventually ends. Everyone's trying to find out how they live in this new peace. We now have this huge alliance, right? This huge alliance of different factions and species that were kind of brought together because of the Iconians. What do they do without the Iconians? Does everyone stay together? Those are some things that will hit in season 11 and beyond. But definitely touching on those time travel themes, and we're starting a story that's going to take us well into 2016.
Oh wow!
Definitely into the late summer of 2016 for sure. Very cool story that I'm obviously playing very coy at because I don't want to give anything away.
Of course.
And then we're telling a secondary story, which we think is really cool, on the fallout of the Iconian War from the Mirror Universe side. The Mirror Universe, they obviously have Iconians there too, and they had an Iconian War too. But I seriously doubt they built a Federation-like alliance with all of their partners in the Delta Quadrant. So how did they win or lose their Iconian War, and what's that fallout going to be for us? And all that's going to center around Deep Space Nine and a big space battle zone in the Badlands. It's all going to be very cool. And we're going to be revamping the entire Cardassian arc, just like we did with the Borg arc and the Romulan arc and the retouch of the Klingon arc for Federation Flow.
Now, if I haven't played in a few years, the life of a games journalist, I'm jumping all over the place. If I want to get caught up, is it possible now, and for other new players or lapsed players who haven't played in a few years, can we jump in where we left off and get through all this story, or is it presented in a way that it's sort of live and then it's gone?
No, absolutely not. We have special rewards that run while it's live. All the item rewards are available forever, so you can get those as often as you want. We have special bonus numerics if you show up and play every week. But if you wanted to pick up and play right now, you can get through all of our amazing Delta Rising content that features almost the entire Voyager cast.
Right.
And then you'd be running through almost another 10 episodes of the Iconian War, which are also very cool. And then once you get through the Iconian War arc, which is going to be launching, or the finale, which is going to be launching in just a few weeks, you're ready to go for season 11, and you're on the same footing as everyone else.
Now, for players who want to come back to the game and want to jump back in, I know for me, I was enamored, and I continually speak up for the absolute love that I have for the space combat in the game. But I, like a lot of people, wasn't as big of a fan of the ground combat. I know there were a lot of issues and a lot of revamps over the first few years of the game. A very significant one, I think it was in year three or so, somewhere around there.
Season 4.
Yeah,
we just
there you go.
Season 4 Crossfire was the name of the season.
So is that? But I still felt it still wasn't where I felt like I wanted it to be. Have you continually been updating that ground portion of the game to make it feel more in sync with what I consider the really awesome space combat?
So we've been kind of tooling around with it a little bit over these last couple of years. We added customizable kits. So if you have a kit, it's full of gems. You can break down what's in the kit, and so that way you can have customizable kits. We haven't done a full revamp on the scale that we did for season 4, but it's something that has come up with the players, and it's something we've considered internally.
Yeah.
Taking another shot at it.
Yeah. Now it must be really interesting for you, sort of looking at your history with Cryptic. I mean, you're now executive producer on Star Trek Online, but you started and worked your way through the company. If I recall correctly, you started as a QA tester, right?
That's correct. I was a temp QA tester on a contract.
So what's that like, going through that entire? Because that took a few years to get to the point where you are now, but that must be quite the journey for you. Were you always on Star Trek Online?
Always. I was always on Star Trek Online from the day that I started. So I started December of 2008 at Cryptic.
Yeah.
And at that time, I mean, the game was fairly young. I was the first QA tester on Star Trek.
Wow.
And then, so I got to kind of be there from the jump. They just had, we just had our first approved showing of the game and our first approved episode, just kind of as proof of concept. Okay, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And so we were just, when I got here, just before we were going to start just full ramp up production on the game.
Wow.
So it was really cool to kind of see it all come together, see all the episodes come through, the iterations on sector space and how that would work. I mean, there were some definite oddball directions that we kind of toyed with up front. But it's just amazing to see how the game and the team and the company has grown over this period of time. The team that you have right now on Star Trek is just so much more veteran, so much more seasoned. It's great.
Now, you did mention some oddball directions. What was one thing that, as you know, from the other side of things, from the QA side, or as you moved up your way to producing, what's something that you really thought was great, but just didn't quite fit with the game and didn't make it into the final product?
I don't see. We've spent so much time getting all these little things that we wish we got in the game at launch, getting them in. There's still might be a few. Boy, it's tough. There were some funny things. We had for a while. Sector space in its original iteration was, you're flying through the map. You're not actually in sector space. Whereas now we did a major revamp 4 or 5 months ago where we changed the scale of sector space to make it feel much more like you're actually flying through space. Collapsed all the walls, all of that. So there's only 3 maps, 1 per sector now.
Oh, wow.
For sector space. And the planets are far larger. It feels like you're flying through space.
Yeah.
But we went even further back where there was a point where your ship could turn left and right and it didn't bank and there was no elevation. It was like you're literally flying over a map. It was a very different direction, but it wasn't long lived.
Yeah. So when you your executive producer duties are done, you get to sit down, you get to just play, and you're not testing something. How do you approach the game? Do you jump right into the story stuff? Do you jump in and just get missions done? Like, are you digging into the ground combat? Where do you sit with sort of your play style in the game?
Well, I mean, first of all, the executive producer's job is never done. That's definitely 24/7, 365, captaining this ship. But when I'm jumping into play, if there's a new episode available, I'm always on the new episode. Even though I play it so much internally, I got to get those rewards, right? I mean, we've made those cool rewards, getting those special numerics, getting those spec points every week, and getting the loot. Other than that, I'm always running through my reps, which I just completed all of my reps. I'll run through and do, if we're running something like crisp identity, like we're running right now, like our appointment mechanics for large bundles of numerics or rewards, I'm always running those. But I'm always a big fan of, if I happen to have 15 or 20 minutes and I can spare the time, I'll jump in and play a queue, because just to get in there and play that space combat that you're talking about, either trying out a new ship. I've personally been addicted to the pilot ships ever since they came out. I've had a hard time flying anything else ever since I got those. But yeah, just definitely jumping in a queue and just enjoying the space combat and playing with other players, anonymously, and just kind of seeing their reactions to things is always awesome for me.
I still have the most vivid memory of the first time that I detached the saucer section when that came out on the Galaxy class, and I was in combat. That's a super vivid. I'm a Star Trek nerd, right? Like we all are, and so that's such a vivid memory. What's your memory like that in game? What really connects with you and brings you back to your Star Trek roots?
So I mean, just like you with the saucer step, it's not that it doesn't happen all the time, but flying a Defiant and having it cloak for the first time is just so exciting. It's just so exciting. Another really big moment, when we did the Romulan faction, we completely redid the scimitar from scratch. And we really made sure that the Thalaron firing sequence matched the movie exactly. And when we had that done and we actually watched it go for the first time, actually getting that done went over schedule a little bit. But we approved it. We said it's important enough. And actually seeing the animations and the effects come together for the first time was another really awesome moment. Yeah.
Now, again, working in the Star Trek universe, you must have had the chance to meet some of the cast. I know that at PAX, I tried, and it didn't succeed, but I tried to move my schedule around because Billy D. Williams was going to be at one of the booths for a little bit for a Star Wars game. And so I tried to move my schedule around. Now with Star Trek, you must have been able to do this as part of your job. I mean, let go over some of the connections that you've been able, hopefully, have been able to make. Maybe I'm not making this comment, and you say, no, I haven't met anyone. But what are some connections that you've been able to make with some of the cast?
Oh yeah, well since we started hiring cast members more and more often to do voice work, it's been great. You know, sometimes they just call in over. They're in another studio. We'll Skype through to do direction, and then they'll send us their tapes. But a lot of times we'll kind of make introductions in person, typically at STLV, to kind of let them know who we are and what it's all about. We've had Garrett Wong come through a couple of times, so that was really cool. Took him out to dinner with some of the team members. Aaron Eisenberg was recently in house just a few months ago. Took him out to lunch and a live stream. Denise Crosby has come through a couple of times, which is very cool. And she just kind of on a whim jumped on stage with us at STLV. Wasn't even scheduled. She was just on the panel before, and we saw her in the hall and said, hey, do you want to come first too? She said, okay. Because she just knew us.
Yeah.
Chase Masterson, got to meet her for the first time at STLV this past year, a few weeks ago. She's looking to come in-house to record for season 11.
Oh, awesome.
I went to a kind of a big partners meeting for CBS in April, and I got to meet Brent Spiner.
Oh wow!
Pretty cool, you know. He was just kind of just schmoozing with people, and that was a very fun moment for me.
Now you got to sit there in that meeting, and you're like, "Hold on, I'm in the same room here." Like, did you have that moment when you were in that meeting at CBS, and you're like, "Holy crap!"
Oh yeah, I mean, it was he was in the meeting. He was kind of giving a presentation, but afterwards, they just had a little thing where he sat around and talked with each other. And he was just kind of going table to table, just kind of BSing with people a little bit, and it was just a really cool moment. You know, I had to geek out a little bit and took a picture to throw on Twitter. So that's super awesome, and it's really exciting because we've kind of proven ourselves to be a great place to work for these actors. And so at STLV, we had actors that soliciting us, talking to us, say, hey, I'm happy to do voice work for the game. Armin Shimmerman, Quark, came up and offered to do some work for us, and that's great. We would love to get him in the game. So, the opportunity to kind of meet people and speak with them professionally, less so much as because they talk with fans all the time, but just speaking with them, almost as professional peers is great because they speak with you in a different way than they would if you're there, to get an autograph and just shake their hand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and to be able to bring that now into the game, like all those connections that you make, yes, they're nice for you, but they're a benefit for the game as well because it's going to get that better content into the game.
Oh, and it's 100% for the game, right? Any sort of extra content we get is all side bonus for me, right?
It's going to be like 0.5% for you. Come on, be honest here.
Sure, just a little bit.
It's a little bit.
Any of these relationships, it's you've got to make sure we get them in game because that's what everybody wants, and we want that as much as the players.
Yeah,
we'll tell these stories with these actors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it really sounds like things are going along wonderfully for Star Trek Online. I know after this conversation, I'm going to be jumping back in because too many great memories have been brought up, and I gotta play through those storylines because I know that you guys do a great job. There's
some amazing content that you haven't played yet that I don't think you've run through even some of the stuff before Delta Rising that really leads into that. So you've got a lot of episodes waiting for you in that journal.
And that's fantastic and that's the one thing. A lot of times when I'm playing MMOs, and the majority of them are that fantasy, you're going through the world. When you're playing through the content, even though your quest chains are sort of sequential, I find that Star Trek Online really does it right in its tying all that narrative together. And it doesn't make it feel like, oh, okay, one more mission. Let's do this stupid mission, and then I can get to the story part. It's very well ingrained together.
And that's something we definitely try to do. Funnily enough, Grant Imahara of Mythbusters fame, he was at STLV, and he actually came to our panel because he's friends with the person who was asking us the questions, the moderator of the panel. And he came to our Meet the Devs after. And so we talked to them and kind of told them about Star Trek. He's a huge Star Trek fan. And we told him that the game is episodic. It's not nearly as kind of like a wide open MMO where you can find your fun and play small quests. And he's like, that's actually what I'm looking for. He's going to be jumping in and playing soon. And potentially, working those contacts, as you said, getting him in there as doing some VO.
Oh, that's fantastic. I really enjoyed this conversation, Stephen. I really can't wait. I'm going to have to jump in, get caught up, so that when New Dawn starts going, I can jump right in there. Now, when are you looking at closing out the stuff with Season 10 and launching Season 11?
So closing out Season 10, closing out the Iconian War is going to take place in September, the big finale arc. A lot of surprises there, a lot of really exciting stuff. Currently have Butterfly running. Very good episode, a lot of fantastic moments, and now a lot of people are talking about him. There's some time travel shenanigans in there for the first time ever. And then we'll be getting into Season 11 in October.
That's fantastic. I'm absolutely excited to jump in and play that. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at. Don't forget about your ults you need to cherish. Each and every little character you've got, no matter what level they're at.
Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts at MMOreporter.com or by clicking on any of the links here. And please check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMOreporter. Thanks, everyone, and see you in game.